I talk a lot about the different broadheads and the vast lineup that Tooth of the Arrow offers, but today I'm going to talk about the differences between 2-blade, 3-blade, and 4-blade broadheads in general, without much regard to any particular brand. The conversation between fixed blades, mechanicals, hybrid broadheads, all of that, that's for a different day. Today we're focusing on fixed blades and the 3 different general configurations you're going to find. So we're going to get right on with it. Let's start with 2 blades. In general, 2 blades come in single bevel or double bevel varieties. Now we make the single bevel. It's my personal preference because a single bevel continues rotating through a target. Because only one side of the blade surface on each side of the broadhead is actually sharpened, only one side is cutting. So when it hits a target, this top side and this bottom side are cutting, but this top side and this bottom side won't be on a right bevel broadhead, for example, and that causes it to cut a twist through a target. There's a lot of naysayers who just don't believe it. It's fact. I've proven it. Many people have proven it, and if you've ever shot a single bevel broadhead into a target, it only takes one shot to prove it to yourself. I've got a video of it right here or right here. You can see for yourself exactly how that works. A double bevel broadhead is sharpened like a knife on both sides. So like a knife is obviously sharpened here and here. That's how a double bevel broadhead would work, except on top and bottom. And when that makes contact with the target, it stops rotation immediately. I'm not going to get too into pros and cons between either of those because they're both highly effective options and both really well represent what a 2-blade broadhead is all about. So pros and cons. A 2-blade broadhead, the biggest pro it has going for it is penetration. There's no design that's going to penetrate better than a 2-blade, and it's as simple as this. Less surface area means less friction, less resistance, more penetration. They're often referred to as a bow hunter's insurance because there isn't a broadhead design that's going to be better on those suboptimal accidental hits if you happen to hit a front shoulder of a big buck or an elk or a moose, which of course we never want that to happen, but things happen in bow hunting, and there's no broadhead design better as an insurance against those types of shots than a 2-blade broadhead. It's just going to outpenetrate everything. Now sometimes you'll see 2-blade broadheads that have a bleeder. That's no longer a 2-blade, that's a 4-blade. And we get asked that a lot. Are you going to add bleeders to your 2 blades? No, because we already have 4-blade broadhead. And it defeats the purpose of a 2-blade broadhead, especially a single bevel. As soon as you put a bleeder on, it definitely hinders the rotation impact that a single bevel can have. The other thing that is really positive about 2-blade broadheads is that they tend to fly no matter what. They're extremely forgiving just because they're compact and there's not a large amount of surface area typically to start throwing an arrow off course. So if your bow is suboptimally set up, you're not super sure about your arrow's tune, then a 2-blade, a smaller 2-blade, is probably going to be a very good option for you. Some of the traditional 2-blades that are very wide cutting diameters, those shouldn't be used at compound speeds. We're talking more about the inch and an eighth, up to inch and a quarter. Even that's pushing it. 2-blades are very popular with traditional guys and low poundage compound shooters, although a lot of people are moving to 2-blades even for high powered compounds. Like myself, I use a 2-blade broadhead for a lot of hunts just because on a high powered compound bow with a heavy arrow, it is just unbelievable how well a good sturdy 2-blade is going to penetrate. Now, in terms of cons of a 2-blade, there only is really one, and that's that sometimes blood trails can take longer to open up. With less cutting surface comes less blood vessels cut. Does that mean lower lethality? Not at all. It just means you might get less of a gory kill. In my experience hunting with and shooting our 2-blade broadheads, blood trails are really good after a little bit longer than you get out of like a 4-blade. So the animal will take off, and after 15, 20 yards, then the blood trail opens up quite nicely, just like anything else. But if you're really looking for that blood trail to open up on impact, you should go with something that has a bit more of a cutting surface like a 4-blade broadhead. Next up is the 3-blade, something that Tooth of the Arrow just came out with this past year, but has been a staple of the modern bow hunting world for decades. 3-blade broadheads simply work. We know that, and we know they work because they've been used on hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of bow hunts over the last few decades. Seriously, they're the most popular fixed blade broadhead design. Now, a big part of the reason that three blades have been so popular is because there was always this old belief that you should have three blades if you have three vanes on your arrow. And of course, factory fletched arrows up until recently all came with three vanes. So guys would spend a lot of time aligning their inserts so that your three blades would line up perfectly with your three vanes. We've learned that that doesn't matter. Vane alignment does not matter, and if you want a deeper explanation, I got a video up here about that as well. With that knowledge, there is definitely a bit of a shift away from three-blade broadheads, but because they've been used for so many decades on so many bow hunts, people know they work and people believe in them, and they do. The biggest benefit a three-blade broadhead has is how easy it is to sharpen. You don't need a specialized sharpener. You need a flat stone. You can even use just a hard, if I found a flat spot on this bench and put a really fine grit sandpaper on it flat enough, I could sharpen it just by taking that broadhead and running it along that sandpaper on a perfectly flat surface. Now, I can't speak for all three-blade broadhead manufacturers, but in general, they're all designed to be sharpened with that method, including ours, a tooth of the arrow. That's the biggest pro that three blades have for them, is that they're so easy to resharpen and reuse. If there's a con, it's just that you have one less cutting surface than a four blade. I don't believe that there's a huge benefit of three blades over four blades in terms of lethality, but there is in terms of sharpening. So that would be the only con I would give to the three blade broadheads. Now, four blade broadheads. This is what made Tooth of the Arrow famous. For a reason. We love four blades. Four blades, the biggest pro is that there's just so much cutting surface. They cut an X through an animal that turns into a square hole. It's a wound channel that does not close up. If you're interested to see what that looks like, scroll through our Instagram and you'll see tons of pictures and videos of this square hole that we got famous for. So four blades are extremely lethal in that sense. They cut big holes, even the small cutting diameter, like this is the 1 inch. And this is my number one preferred broadhead, is the 1 inch solid. It's a small head, which means it flies really well and it holds very true, especially in wind. But with those four blades and that square hole it cuts, it is a wound channel, often looking like you shot an animal with a rifle. It's unbelievable what a four blade blood trail can look like and what that wound channel will look like. If there's one con to a four blade broadhead, it's just that you need specialized equipment to sharpen. It's not crazy. We make our own sharpener. This is the Tooth of the Arrow four blade sharpener. It works on all of our four blades. Again, I get asked a lot if this will work on other companies' four blades. I haven't tried it. You'll have to try it for yourself, but it works really well for our four blade broadheads. And you can see that it's two flat stones set at an angle to accommodate that four blade design. So you can't use this for the two blade single bevel, and you can't use this for the three blade. This is only for the four blades. And that's the only downside that comes to the camp of the four blades, is that you need this special piece of equipment to resharpen them. Not a big deal in my opinion, but it's something to consider if ease of resharpening is a big concern for you and you're on a tight budget and don't want to buy that extra piece. Every broadhead design that we talked about today has pros and honestly very limited cons, but there is no pro that doesn't come with some trade-off. If you're gaining penetration, you're typically getting a slightly lesser blood trail. If you're increasing cutting surface and opening up a bigger wound channel, you're typically getting slightly less penetration, and so on and so on. Just like anything in this world, there's no positive that comes without some downside. Everything is trade-offs, and you just need to figure out and assess what's going to be best for you in your setup. There's also nothing wrong with trying multiple. Here's the thing. If your bow is well set up and your arrows are well tuned, you should be able to shoot any quality fixed blade broadhead off the shelf and they'll fly like field points. If you've gotten into this, line of thinking that, some broadheads fly better than others and, these fly well out of my bow and these don't, that's only kind of true, but it's not like rifles, how, one rifle will just like a certain ammunition and another won't. It's not like that. If you're having issues with any quality fixed blade, and I say quality because there's a lot of stuff made overseas that's just junk. If you're having issues with any quality broadhead flight, you have an issue somewhere in your setup. And I have tons of videos on this channel that'll help you figure that out. So the point is, try lots of things. See what you like, see what works best for you. It's a ton of fun. It's one of my favorite things about the hobby or lifestyle of archery. Thank you guys so much for watching.